Hey everybody, Mark Edward Lewis here from CinemaSound.com. Today we're going to do a little shootout between Adobe Audition and Audacity. Now Audacity is free and a lot of people use it. It's a good program, as is Adobe Audition. A lot of people came from Audacity to Audition, especially since it came from Cool Edit Pro. But let's take a look at feature for feature, at least some of the ones that are divergent, and see which one wins the shootout. Let's roll. All right, so we're here in Audacity, and like Adobe Audition, it's a 32-bit float digital audio workstation capable of doing a lot of great work in sound and waveform editing. Not only that, unlike most digital audio workstations, Audacity also has the ability to do spectral editing of the waveform, which is really, really nice. It's one of the things that we do in Isotope RX. But whereas we can take a look at individual waves
2, 3, 4,
and edit them to suit, which is really, really useful. Not just the spectral view, but also that waveform view. In fact, you can view them together just like you can in Adobe Audition. It's one of the real serious pluses of Audacity. Also, of course, Audacity is really well set up to do radio work because of how its plugins are set up in terms of being able to generate tones and lots of destructive effects that are available, as well as some really, really cool tools, not to mention the ability to do MIDI, which is, if you're in the world of music, that's something that's a big bonus. You can create MIDI tracks, which unfortunately at this time is not something that Adobe Audition can do. And you can also import MIDI, which is something that Audition will not do. Now, it has some limited functionality in Apple computers, which you'll have to probably download some other software for. But it definitely will play that back, and that's pretty great, especially if you're doing any kind of MIDI music. So let's talk about what the divergence is here between Audacity and Audition. First, MIDI. Audacity has a little bit of MIDI functionality, which is great. It's limited. If you wanted to do real MIDI functionality, well, Audacity is not the program for you. You want to get something that's more robust in the music field. Next, if you take a look, generally you can look the difference between this and Audition. It's just not as cool. I mean, we can resize and things like this, but to be able to functionally work in a multi-track environment where we maybe have 80 to 100 tracks, this is going to get a little tedious. Now, we do have a mixer here, again, with really small little faders that are really difficult to grab. We do have the mute and solo, which is awesome, but that's about it. And if we had hundreds of tracks, or even if we had 24 tracks, that's going to get a little old. I would give the bonus and the benefit to Audition there. Not only that, Audition has professional level, just like you would set it up in a professional studio, sends and auxiliaries and effects and automation and all kinds of things like this. Which brings me to the next point, which from a mixing platform, Audacity really is not able to do that. It's an excellent editing platform. In fact, if we take a listen here.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3.
This is just a little thing I recorded on the Mac itself. But if we wanted to do effects and these kinds of things, we would not be able to put them in real time. We would have to do destructive editing. And like Audition, it has a bazillion things to be able to do that. But unfortunately, in the world of EQ, this is just about the only equalizer you're going to get, which is a simple, 1/3 octave graphic EQ, which is not at all what we need to do any kind of professional mixing. And in general, most of these plugins are really quite simpleton, and they actually are not really, they don't sound very good when you use them in comparison to what we have in the world of Audition with parametric EQ, multiband compressors, and all these kinds of things. Now, the one thing that has superiority, and I will probably be using Audacity for the near and foreseeable future, is Paul Stretch. And this is the most incredible time stretch algorithm I've ever seen. So let's just take this word here.
Check.
Check, fine, with a little reverb on it. If I go to Effect, use Paul Stretch, we're going to make it 10% speed, or, in other words, it's going to go really, really, really slow. We go like this. No artifacts and beautifully smooth. We love Paul Stretch for making infinite amounts of sound design. And as we work on Axonar and some of these other sci-fi programs that we're going to be working on, you can be sure you'll be hearing plenty of Audacity time stretch. Audition doesn't have that kind of capacity at this time. Audition is more of a real-time, its emphasis is really more real-time editing, and Audacity is more destructive offline editing, where we would be adding things and that kind of stuff, just to be able to implement on the audio file itself and then export. Then from an editing perspective, one of the complaints a lot of people used to have with Audacity and things like Cool Edit Pro is that if you wanted to do editing where you were taking out breaths, you'd have to click and then move the right clip over to heal the edit and all that. But Audacity actually does that all in one, which is great. And one of the things that really helps save time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
As opposed to where this was.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? You can just delete and it immediately kills it. But what if you don't want to do that, which is most of what we want to do? We don't want to necessarily have everything lopped over like this. That becomes an extra move. So what's basic becomes more difficult to deal with, and what's more difficult to deal with becomes basic. And when you're doing editing, especially crossfades and things like this, if you're doing any kind of mixing, that becomes problematic and actually wastes time. And in Audition, we can assign key commands to this so that we can choose which way we want it to go. Now, I mentioned that these plugins are pretty terrible, which they are. The echo reverb thing is just really not how we want to do delay. The EQ we talked about. The reverb here is very simpleton with a lousy sounding algorithm. And there's some other fun things in here. But generally speaking, this is not what you want to be using to tweak sound and make it sound great. On the other hand, you could use AU and VST plugins, which you can in Audition as well. But the plugins that come with Audition, tube model compressor, multiband compressor, parametric EQ. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's really, really quite good. And the noise cancellation and the noise reduction part of both of these programs are Fast Fourier, which isn't the best, but I would definitely give the edge to Audition as well. A lot of the functionality of Audacity is a little wonky. Doing denoising is one of those, where we go here to noise reduction and we want to get the noise profile. We select that here. When we do this, it closes, which is really annoying. We have to reopen it to do noise reduction. And then in order to do that, we have to have had reselected. We can't reselect while the plugin is open. That's a pain. We go here, noise reduction. When we hit preview.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
We can't actually do anything until the preview is over. So if I want to do much more reduction and much less frequency smoothing, I hit preview.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
I can't change anything until that preview is over. We'll go here. We'll turn up the sensitivity. We'll see how it does.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
It actually sounds pretty good on this maximum setting, but that is a maximum setting. Let's see how it does in Audition. Now, we talked about how awesome it is that we can do spectral editing here in Audacity, which is awesome. But this is about all we're going to be able to do, unlike in Audition, where we can actually look at a full screen of this and do all kinds of crazy editing and bogey removal. We can draw, we can do all kinds of things, not to mention apply individual effects to these specific areas, which becomes sort of problematic here if we wanted to do, let's see, noise reduction like this. We'd have to get a noise profile. It just becomes very, very tedious indeed. And the definite edge here goes to Audition. And ultimately, the bummer of the fact that we can't actually do real-time plugins here in Audacity makes it, a platform that we just can't consider for any kind of professional mixing. I mean, it's fun for, doing a couple of edits like I do. When I'm doing sound effects, I'll definitely bring audio here into Audacity, edit it, make something interesting, and then do an export, which is fine. But for anything that's holistic or large format, the fact that we really can't do professional mixing, there's no real automation here, that makes it just really unsuitable, and Audition definitely gets the win there. Here in Audition, we'll just go to Noise Reduction, Capture Noise Print, and once we have that, it's good. We'll select the rest of this, and then go to whatever denoise or noise restoration thing we want to do. Let's see how this goes. Looks like a pretty simple setting.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check.
And I can update this while it's performing a preview.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check.
And it's doing an excellent job of removing the noise and leaving the reverb alone. The other way, of course, in Audition we can do this is do this in real time from the department of the redundancy department. I can go to plugins here in the effects rack and drop down noise reduction, denoise, just here. And I don't even have to do a noise print. I can choose what kind of emphasis I want and go from there.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check. Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check.
And we'll do full bandwidth.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check.
Not only that, we can do de-reverb as well, which is a super dope new addition to hear us here in Adobe Audition 2019, etc.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check.
Without.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check, 1, 2, check.
And you can see that the de-reverb actually helps with denoising as well. Everything off now.
Check, 1, 2, check. 1, 2.
Pretty strong difference, and yet the voice still sounds pretty natural. And this is coming from a Mac laptop microphone. Ugh. So as you can see, free in the terms of Audacity definitely gives you some good value, especially if you want to do destructive editing. But if you're doing any kind of multi-track mix or mixing in general, Audition's tools, plugins, workability, processor ease, and all kinds of other export functionality, not to mention the fact that you can dynamically link with programs like Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects, makes Audition the clear winner. Now, whether or not it's worth the $600 a year, well, that's up to you. Are you a professional making that kind of money or more? Then absolutely. If you're a hobbyist, well, there are other versions of the Creative Cloud package that you can get that reduce that price if you just want to have the wonder of Adobe Audition. But if you're doing audio mixing in general, and that's what you need to do, Adobe Audition is the program for you. If you're doing MIDI, then probably Audacity or some other MIDI program. Hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If so, please subscribe to us here on the Cinema Sound channel and come visit us at cinemasound.com, where we have hundreds, if not thousands, of videos and articles to help you get that unfair competitive advantage that Hollywood has in the world of audio immersion. Until then, we'll see you in post. Even if